Okay, let's get started. A big hello and welcome to everyone that has joined us today for our webinar, The Digital Transformation of Change Consulting. It's great to have you all here today. We're really excited that you can join us. I see quite a few of you already have. We may have some stragglers coming along in a minute as well. Just to introduce myself, my name is Alyssa Park and I'm the Marketing Manager here at Changefirst and your host for today's webinar. I'm just going to go over a little bit of housekeeping for today. If you could just remain on mute whilst we're on the webinar, just to allow our speakers to present without interruption, that would be fantastic. This webinar is scheduled to last about an hour, including the Q&A. So we've roughly got 45 minutes for the webinar and 15 minutes for the Q&A section. Just so you know, we are recording this webinar and the recording will be sent to you via email over the next 72 hours. And we'll also send you the slides as well. We'd really love to hear from you and would like to include you in the conversation. So please ask any questions and share your comments in the Q&A section that you'll see on the right-hand side of the WebEx window. Do this at any time during the webinar and we'll answer them during the Q&A session at the end. Some of you have already filled it in, which is great to see, but we have a poll on the right-hand side of the window asking how would you rate the digital change management maturity of your firm or organization? Now, we will get to this later on in the presentation, but feel free to complete it now as it's pretty short. Right, so I'm just going to introduce you to our speaker today. Audra is CEO of Changefirst and has over 20 years experience in multi-industry and international change execution. Audra's passion is enabling our client organizations and consulting partners to deliver faster, more sustainable transformation. She is a thought leader in the change management space and is regularly invited to speak at public and client events. So I'm just going to take a bit of some time to go over today's agenda. So in the 45 minutes that we have, we want to take a look at a topic that's been a really strong focus for us over the past several years, but it has been brought into very sharp focus recently, that the impact of digital is having on the way that consultants like yourselves deliver change within your client base. We'd like to share some of what we're experiencing and hearing about COVID's impact in our interaction with the organisations that we support. We'd like to explore with you the increasing ways in which digital solutions are helping our customers to respond and also to stay relevant, which is important. And then we'd like to take the opportunity to share the benefits of what our own digital platform is bringing to the way our consulting partners work and consult with their clients. And that can be a range of contexts, so whether you're a change consulting firm working with clients, or if your role is to deliver change management services inside an organisation, or maybe you're a technology provider delivering change management services as part of the rollout of your technology, the platform can really help you do that. So I'm going to pass you over to Audra without further ado.
Thank you very much, Alyssa. And thank you all for your interest in this topic of digital. I guess the first thing I wanted to say is that, the digital conversation is not new. But as Alyssa mentioned earlier, what COVID has done is it's like pushed it up a hill, really. And I know we are inundated with stats. It feels like every time I log in, maybe daily, perhaps it's weekly, but it feels like daily. We're hearing about different insights on the impressions, what it means for us going forward, and so on. But there are a couple that I'd like to pull out as context and share, because I think they're aligning really well with things that leaders are telling us. And the first one, this image actually inspires, is from Consultancy UK. And what they shared not so long ago is that 77% of IT decision makers would have sped up their digital transformation if they could imagine the full impact COVID would have in just a few months. This really resonates with what we are certainly hearing. And the other one, also from Consultancy UK, was that 60% of leaders, not necessarily IT specific, but general leaders, asked were saying that they are already accelerating their transformation programs as a direct result of the disruption that the pandemic has wrought on their workforce. And which I suppose is why I'm using this title for the slide, which is to say that digital really is no longer a nice to have. It's no longer an option. The question for me, and I've asked the question in conversation, is, what areas are we going to digitalize? And so, Alyssa, can I ask you just to move to the next slide? What I've found, and these guys who are the source of this image here, Horvath and Partners, give a great summary of, once again, what we're being told. And what we're being told is that digitalization in all what they call corporate areas is a top priority. Digitalization is still on the boardroom agenda. And, it's significant to us because we're talking about 7 out of 10 of the industry clusters in their study, considering this to be number one on their list. Now, what comes second and third is also important to us, because in second place, we have large-scale cost improvements and structural changes. Of course, for different reasons, depending on the industry. But what it says to me is that more often than not, change is transformational in nature. Still, it's integrated. What they're talking about is change that is going to be complex. And, the poll that Elissa mentioned that is on the right-hand side speaks to the fact that this complex integrated portfolio that is very much on the agenda requires a level of change maturity and capability to pull it off. The third one that this summary graph speaks to is about leaders that are prioritizing process and behavior change that will help them engage more of their teams, develop the skills to adopt new technologies quickly, to stay connected both internally and with their customers while we're having to work remotely. And despite furlough and despite layoffs. So we're certainly starting to see our people processes and some of the enabling functions that we provide as a consultancy group, like change and project management and other enabling functions, get all wrapped up in the digital goals of the organizations that we're supporting. And so, these three things together, these three top priorities involve significant change, and it's absolutely at the heart of all that we're doing to try to help our client organizations navigate these waters. And on the next slide, I have a title there that says, most leaders anticipate more, not less change. It strikes me that even, with a global economy that's slowing down, we have to pivot so much, we have to be responsive so much that, the organizations that we're supporting are telling us about more change. I know they're also saying that we have to do more with less, but there's more change. And what, we're hearing is that the cost of failure is still high. I don't see that the crisis has fast-tracked the success rates for change projects and programs. And we can always depend on McKinsey to remind us that, changes our clients need to make need to be done faster and in a more agile way. And if that's the environment, we know that, human capacity is an issue. It continues to be an issue. And on the next slide, I've got a couple of images there as well. It's not only an issue, but it's accentuated as an issue because of COVID, and we're forced, I think, to turn to digitalization and different ways, creative ways to help our clients ramp up, pivot, deliver transformation, and essentially to be change ready. And really the question then is how can we do this differently? And I've got one more image on the next slide. And this is where I kind of draw close to the amount of data that we're looking at and I'm sharing here as context. But even if we get back to some sense of normality, when and how are our client organizations going to start letting us in? What does that look like? How different is it from the way that we have been working? As dynamic as our situation is, how are we going to transfer skills effectively? How do we, step outside our own concerns to think about different ways to engage? It's interesting to me, and the reason I say this is because I'm interested in the fact that some of our most skeptical in terms of digitalizing change management are our people and engagement custodians inside organizations that we're supporting. And why this is interesting to me, and I don't know if you're feeling some of that and experiencing some of that, but it's really interesting to me because, any sort of effective digital first strategy inside an organization actually puts the technology second. The customer doesn't see themselves, our clients don't see themselves having stronger relationships with a particular technology, but rather this technology is the enabler to strengthening those relationships. And the processes that we still need to help our organizations define and put in place. And so there is something here about the new normal, or I paraphrase it, if you could see me, I'm using kind of quotes, that says, we now are forced into a situation where we're looking for different ways to engage with our clients. And I'm going to show you a little bit of our digital capability. But before I do that, the poll that Alyssa spoke to is on the right-hand side. And I think, Alyssa, you'd mentioned that folks had already started to complete the poll. But I'm really quite interested to see what you're saying about the level of maturity. How ready are you? How digitally mature are you to do something different, to be a little different in the way that we are engaging with our clients? If we kind of close the poll and share the results, it'd be interesting to see what's happening there, what you're experiencing. Okay, I think we're sharing the results on the right-hand side of your screen. If we share that, Alyssa?
Yeah, a couple more seconds and it's just about to go. There we go.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so I mean, we had one question to ask, which is, how do you rate your readiness for this? And we asked, and we took an extreme, at either side. We're saying, I'm using, I guess what I would call analog stuff. It's offline, it's spreadsheet, it's email, it's SharePoint, and so on. There's something in the middle that I'm using some tools. We put them together, we create them maybe as and when we need them, and then there's something at the end, which was at the other end of the spectrum, which says, we have something that's integrated. It's digital. And I wanted to kind of use this because we are seeing a fair bit of development going on, speedy development going on as a result of the situation that we find ourselves in. And what I'm going to show you, I wanted to just kick off with this because what I'm going to show you as I introduce our own digital change management solution is something that is, at the end of selection C. I'm going to show you a digital change management solution, which is called Roadmap Pro. And we really feel that it's in the right place at the right time, to help us get ahead of all that's going on in our environment. What I have to say about Roadmap Pro is that our journey to digital predates COVID. Yeah, it predates COVID. We've been providing digital tools, learning and planning resources for over 7 years. We've been around for about 25 years, and we started with face-to-face capability building. Alyssa said that that's, where my passion. How do we help our client organizations, do this work themselves and learn from us and continue to be change ready in their organizations. And for us now, over 60% of our revenue is digital. And I have nothing, more exciting to say about it, except that what we've tried to do over the years, over these, 7 years, is to be responsive to what our clients are saying to us. We are global. We're working globally. We have to engage people across geography, across function. Our technology partners are saying to us, we are putting in technology where there are adoption issues, and it really does differ depending on where you are in different locations. Our consultancies are saying to us, we want to be able to go in and make an impact quickly, not just with issue, but with real suggestions and proposals that will allow us to move fast. So we have really tried to respond to what we're hearing in our client base, and now our entire intellectual property is online. And so, on the next slide, I'm just going to, this is a summary slide, and as Alyssa said, you will get these slides, but let me just use this to say, before I take you in to look under the hood, if you will, of Roadmap Pro, let me just say what I'll be showing you. What I'll be showing you is a ready-to-use out-the-box solution that we've developed, And when I use those words, ready to use and out the box, it's something that you can pick up. You can pick up and use right away. You can learn and refresh as you go. You can add it to your playbook that you already have with your clients. You have an alternative. You have an additional resource that you might bring to bear, because this one actually may fit better with the culture of the organization that you're working with. So that's the first thing we're going to show. And if I bring to mind some decision criteria that I got from, I think it's a medium size, I think that's fair to say, medium-sized consultancy where I've been speaking with recently. We developed it to cover the implementation challenges, and I say the implementation challenges, not solution design or strategy development, but, the implementation challenges, cover those end to end. We developed it so that it is easy to overlay on other processes that you're working with, your project processes, and we overlay that, with a breadth of tools. So I'll show you a few of those, with options, how little do we need of this, with flexibility, to use as much as you need, to configure so that it's a closer fit with other capabilities in your playbook. We developed it to use data, and data from, your stakeholders. You engage your stakeholders. They tell you what's happening inside the organization, and you use that data to inform the plans and the proposals that you put in place. We developed it to bring visibility and transparency to the way that we're working with our clients, and with no geographical limitation. And the last thing I'll say before I go under the lid is that we developed it, and this was an important criteria for this consultancy I mentioned, to make the nuts and bolts of change management easier and faster. If you can accelerate the nuts and bolts, then what these guys were saying is that our impact can be quick but no less robust, and we can focus on the consulting that we do best, the way that we engage with our clients, the way that we build relationships, the way that we create powerful interventions. And so when I said it was an out-of-the-box and ready-to-use, this is what I'm trying to represent with this image here. And so what I'd like to do now is to come out of the presentation and share my screen so that I can literally take you under the hood of Roadmap Pro. So let me say a little bit about our our intentions here, how we put this together, and why we did it in this way. What we did here with Roadmap Pro and why we say it's ready to use and out of the box is because we've combined 4 services, typical services and capabilities that we would provide and use with our clients. One of them is learning. So it's as much about the way that we will refresh and learn quickly, learn on demand so that we can support our client, the way that we will onboard our teams. So that, as a group going into the client, we're all singing from the same hymn sheet. It is as much about that as it is about how we share what we know with our client, how we share, how we're going to get this done, what is important, what are some criteria for success with our client. And so we have integrated learning here on demand that can be scaled, I guess, to the needs of the organization that you're working with. And it's as important as it is internally to us as it is in the way that we are working with our client. And if we think about the what we're learning, that brings me to the other service. So we have learning which relates to the process and the plan that Roadmap Pro is driven by. Roadmap Pro is underpinned by our methodology PCI, which is a research-based framework for implementing change in a way that is people-centered. And so what the learning aligns with is the process of PCI. So we have learning as one of the ways that we are able to share what we know and work together with our client. We have the process that we use, and yes, it aligns quite well with other processes that we might be working with in our playbook. But we also have a service that we are using with our clients, which is all about planning. We are helping our clients to build change workstream plans, to understand what are the key processes that need to be in place to be able to implement. And so on my left-hand navigation, you'll see that I have plans, a way to create a process and build a plan. The other one that we have is diagnostics. So I also have on my left-hand navigation diagnostics. And what is the return for us and our clients? Well, the return is that we can get to the heart of the issue very quickly. What are the risks? What are the impacts? What's the situation with readiness? How come we're not getting stickiness with our new technology? And so we have a number of diagnostics there that allow us to understand risk and assess that, and to use that information to inform the plans and proposals that we're making to our clients. So I want to dip in and give you a couple of examples of what we mean. So when I talk about the plan, when I talk about how we work with our clients to help create plans, deploy plans, I'm showing you a menu here which are examples of different things that we as consultants might be working on concurrently. So we have a system here whereby you may be supporting different clients, or you're working within an organization where you're working on different streams of work. Now let me show you what a plan gives to a consultant or a consultancy. Every time we work on a plan, we provide you with a number of different resources in here. We're providing you with transparency and visibility around this dashboard. So you'll see that this is my plan. I have this dashboard here. There is a quick sense of, what is happening, what is the progress, what is upcoming as far as tasks in a plan. I'm working on this. This is my plan. I'm working on this. I'm working with the client to understand who's impacted, who's affected by this particular change. And so, every one of those example plans or projects that we're working on with our clients will give us one of these. We'll have a dashboard and a way to kind of quickly show what's going on. I'm going to come back to this actually, just to kind of show you what that might look like if it's filled and used. how do we get to that? Where do we go to kind of get information that we need to feed this system? Well, I said it comes kind of ready to use and out the box, because, even before I've done anything in this plan, we provide, consultants with something to run with. We're saying that even before you get started, part of the challenge that we have often is that, we may be called to the party late. As change practitioners, sometimes we're not there early in the definition stage, but yet we are required to make an impact. And so what we wanted to do here was to provide a plan for you to start with, a sample plan. And we put our best practice in here. As a research-based organization, we have 25 years worth and then some of what works, what doesn't work. And so we rolled it up on here and we said, look, if you are building a change workstream plan, you need actions and you need steps and stages around how you're going to initiate this thing, how you're going to lead this thing, and how you're going to engage people in this. And in all of these areas, we put our best practice in there and said, at this stage, here are some things that you would be doing. This would be the stage. Here would be some typical actions that you would take. And, if you were working within a project context or any kind of structure within your client organization, you probably want to put some timing against those things. You want to understand when you're going to start, when you're going to end. You want to determine who will do the work. So when, this consultancy I was speaking with was saying to me, we want to make sure the nuts and bolts somehow are accelerated. We heard that. We heard that clearly, and we said, yeah. We want to be able to run with a plan. We want to go to the project board and say, hey, look, here's a sample. Here's something to get us going. And we will then do the work over the period of time to refine this plan. Now, of course, no two plans are the same. We understand that, there'll be different levels of planning. Some things are continuous improvement and small. Other things are big projects. We know that, we need to do it differently in some industries and in some clients. And so we made this so, and it's run by a content management system. We made it so that as consultants, we can adjust this. We can move it. All the things you would be doing in Excel and SharePoint and Microsoft Gantt, you can move it. You can edit it. Let's edit this task, this action. You can decide that, that's not really relevant for us. You can decide, based on what I'm hearing on the ground, there are other things that we can do. And so we need a new action. And so what we wanted to do here was to make it configurable and easy to use. And even though, I can't really change these labels here as a practitioner, these labels can be changed because this is all run by a content management system. And, how we came here was to say that, when you land on a plan, you get a dashboard. And this dashboard has some typical things you might want to review with your client. Where are we up to? We've got some milestones. Are they complete? Do we still have work to do? Do we have something that is late? Whereas these are upcoming. And what's causing that? Now, there's one other thing that we put in here, and I think it reflects the way that we have to work. Sometimes we're called in, and what we have to do is to provide the answer. But what we're hearing more and more, engagement surveys are validating this, is that we need to collaborate. And so, collaboration in its current form is that we do our work, we download it, we bring it to SharePoint potentially, we share that with clients or Dropbox and so on and so forth. What we're saying here is that if we can kind of somehow make those nuts and bolts easier, it allows us to be faster but no less robust. So we can add people, we can collaborate right here. If we are all on this platform, if you are on here, if your client is on here, then you can find that individual, you can find that person, and you can figure out how do we need to work together with this plan. Do you just need to see what's happening on a fortnightly basis? Is that what needs to happen? You have fortnightly meetings with your client and they just need to know what's happening? Or in fact, do you need to work together with your client counterpart? in which case everything that we are able to do in here, Brian is also able to do, and Brian gets notification of that. This is what I mean about some of those nuts and bolts that we wanted to make sure that we can make easier or accelerate. But let me just go in a little deeper, under the hood and show the process that we're using. I said that, our platform was driven by a methodology that we have, and we have this methodology of 6 parts, where we say that, and you may have a different form of words that you're using with your client. We're saying that, from a people perspective, we have to kind of bring that to the wider organization so change can actually start, and there's leadership, and there's engagement, and there's communication planning and involvement, and all that kind of stuff that we understand and recognize, and there's stuff that we have to do to understand the stakeholder challenge within our client organization, and so on. And so as you look at this list of things, you'll see that it speaks to all the typical interventions and processes that we support our clients with. And if I can give you sort of an example of what that looks like even further down, it's, we've created something that we think is easy to learn and share. Because if I was in this stage where we're saying, we need to describe this thing, we need to kind of really help our clients understand, the impact and the story that we will use to share that with the rest of our organization. Well, that should be easy for us to do. It should be easy to remind ourselves of the do's and don'ts. What is the underlying concept here? What are we trying to deliver? What is the deliverable? It should be easy for us to remind ourselves and consider different options for doing this work. And so when I said to you earlier, what we wanted to do was to roll up those options. When you sit with your client, you'll be saying to your client, here are some considerations for you. We could do it this way. That has this implication. We can do it like this. That has this implication. Well, that was the same motivation for us. We're saying if you're doing a particular bit of work at a particular stage in your process, you have a number of different possibilities because they have different implications for the client. And similarly, what we said was, if you're using data, that should be easy to do. And if you remember, 25 years ago, we got started. 7 years ago, we were thinking about rolling this up. We had a lot of data. We have something like 10 key tools. They were asking different questions about different things. Just imagine, you're working with your client and you want to understand readiness. Another time, you want to understand impact. At another time, you want to kind of check in on how has this been done in the past. So you want to understand legacy. Well, similarly here, we wanted to kind of understand, have a way to quickly get to understanding what impact looks like, what's really happening here. And so to accelerate the nuts and bolts for us meant that we could take it out of a spreadsheet process. We can create something like SurveyMonkey where the things of segmentation and questioning and so on are made simple, and we can then focus on what the results show us. And so if I look in here to kind of show you what some of the results can show and what the system is kind of doing to accelerate the nuts and bolts, this is what is happening here. We have a situation where we are able to add data, data that is coming directly from the stakeholders inside your client organizations. We are able to assess risk quickly and point them in the direction of what must be done. So that's one thing we're able to do. The bars like this represent what people have said to us. And then you see we have a line here. So we have, 10, 15 years worth, in fact, of data, cleaned responses. And so we're also able to say, but what does this mean? Are there any other analytics that we could use for comparative purposes that will help the client understand the importance of this data point? And so we have benchmarking information. That's what I'm showing here with this line. We what we said was, and you might remember this in your conversation, you have some graphs and your client says, yes, but how big a problem is it? Is that a manageable risk? And you're able to say, well, I guess it depends. It depends on how you compare to what others are saying, others who are using similar instruments for similar sorts of projects. That might give you an indication of whether it's important to act or not. It might give you you an indication as to whether this high volume issue is really such an issue. And so once again, we were wanting to kind of really accelerate these nuts and bolts to give us quick insight to allow for engagement within your clients. But let me add one other thing, because I think an important part of what we do is to shine a light. We are the mirror. We're a mirror. We can ask the right question. We can get to the heart of the issue very quickly. And then the question is, once we understand what the risk is, what do we do about it? And so we rolled up our best practice onto Roadmap Pro. We're saying that if you identify a risk, here are some things to get you started. The motivation being, can we move quickly? Can we be credible fast? Can we give an insight quickly? Can we have a teachable moment with our clients? And so that's what we did. We rolled up, here are some suggested actions for the risks that we have identified as a result of these tools. You know, I like the look of that, but you know, I also think that there's an additional one that I might add based on what I understand to be on the ground with my clients. And if you remember that plan that I was showing you earlier, where, you know, even before we'd done a piece of work, we had a plan, a sample plan, something that you can export and run with to your project board meetings. We're saying that the things that we have ticked, the new actions that we wanted, are now starting to help us to refine and customize our processes. So there was for us a real sense that if we are able to use the digital capability to make the nuts and bolts, as it was called, easier, then we can focus on providing high value consultancy for our clients. And that was, you know, a big motivation for us as we put Roadmap Pro together. I mentioned a number of services. So I said that, you know, there was learning. So let me say, you know, there are, I think, 28 videos at the last count, where we've taken each part of this process and said, you know what, how would I best make a case for doing this work with my client? What is it that the leader or the decision maker needs to understand about this part of the process so that I get a mandate to proceed within that client? And so we have these little videos, you know, 3 minutes or so, that will allow us to do what we would naturally do, what we would do by PowerPoint, what would be, we would investigate and find and share as a way to help our clients understand why we're doing it and what we're doing at any particular point in time. So there's the learning there is the process there are tools that we're able to use. Now, collaboration, that's the other thing. I started to show a little bit about how we can share the work that we're doing with our clients. So, you know, I can find someone here. I know that I have to work with this plan. And this is particularly important because often when, you know, as a change agent inside our client, we are the lead, we are leading, but we have deployment challenges in different regions, in different countries, in different geographies, functions. And so, you know, we may build a plan as you have seen it, but we want to engage with local leaders to be able to deploy that plan. And we have Claire here, who is driving a team in the Northwest region, for example, and we want Claire to be able to work on the plan as it applies to her and her team in that region. And so if you think about how we would work, you know, we wanted to bring that into the system here because we want to make it easy for Claire to do her adjustments to the plan. And when we get together on a regular basis, we now are able to see what is going on in the Northwest region without having to move the information about. So we created a system that would provide a single source of truth. And many people can work there. And Brian, who was contributing in the change team, the core change team, has now rolled off the project. So, you know, Brian is no longer a contributor, but what Brian probably needs to see on a monthly, bi-weekly basis is just a quick snapshot of what's happening across the different pieces of work. And so, you know, we're trying to kind of bring these core things together to allow us to work in an agile fashion, which I think is going to be the requirement for us in our current environment, to be quicker, but indeed no less robust in the way that we are working. This dashboard, I'm going to come out of this dashboard just to give you a flavor of one that, has been worked on. Just so you get a sense, in the system, what we're creating is a sense of transparency within our technology partners in particular, but with consultancies and our clients. Let's see what's happening in terms of readiness. Let's see what's happening ahead of user acceptance testing. And so, we're able to show what's happening, not just in terms of what has been completed, but what's late. We can explain what is late in terms of the data points, and we're able to say, across the process, here are the key folks who are somehow impacted, need more support, and so on. The things that we would naturally do, we want to understand impacted groups. We want to understand where there's a readiness challenge or a resistance issue, and we want to be able to share that and work collaboratively with our clients. And so as we pulled, Roadmap Pro together, those were certainly some of the criteria in our mind for developing this digital capability. I'm going to pause here on, what's happening under the hood of Roadmap Pro and just take us back to the slideware for a moment. So let me take you back there. Okay. So as Alyssa said, we have some time for questions or comments based on what you've seen, but I just wanted to kind of preface that with just some clear words about how we have been working so far with our consultant partners. We're working on two levels with our consulting partners. On the first one is really us working as an enabler to, consulting partners, but also technology partners. An enabler to be more efficient, to be impactful quickly with clients, because we're leveraging digital, and I put this in parentheses again, to allow us to be more collaborative in the way that we are delivering our delivery methods, to allow us to preserve and sustain relationships even if we have a sort of imposed distance between us. So the first level in which we're working with consulting partners and technology partners is as an enabler. The second one, I guess, is, and it's shown at the bottom of this slide, is that we're sharing revenue. So, our consulting partners are adding Roadmap Pro to their playbook. They are reselling, not only using it themselves, but reselling Roadmap Pro to their clients because their clients are interested in what they have been using throughout the engagement. And, if you're already embedding the approach inside your client, what you're doing is creating stickiness, and that has the potential for an additional revenue stream. And so the second way in which we're working is to share revenue, to allow, our consultancy partners to retain and win new business. And so I think, Alyssa, I'm going to pause here for a minute. I know that we have probably about 10 minutes or so before the end of our time together, and allow for a little bit of question and comment from you.
That's great. Thanks for that, Audra. So now it's time for the Q&A session. Thanks everyone so far for sending your questions through. Again, just to remind you that you can add that to the right-hand side of the window there. But I'm just going to start with this first question from Linda. Linda asked, is there a portfolio management dashboard view where I can see a snapshot of status or health of the various different change projects or programs that a team might be working on simultaneously?
Linda, thank you for the question, and it's a question that we're asked all the time, in fact. We don't have a portfolio management view ready-made. Because, often the view is different. What different partners and organizations, in fact, want to see is different. but we are able to create, we're able to prepare and customize a portfolio view based on particular needs. And the reason why we're able to do that is that, each of these services are created as separate sort of APIs, and we are able to export the information from each of these services to be able to create a portfolio view that would be most relevant for the consultancy or partner or client in question. So I guess the answer is yes. But it requires configuration based on your particular requirements. Does that answer the question, I wonder, from Linda?
Okay, I've got another question here from Juliet. You mentioned that Roadmap Pro includes benchmark data. Can you tell me more about that?
Yes. So over the years that people have used the tools, we have, I guess, I call it cleanse the data. So it's not attributed. It's not attributed to a particular individual within a particular client, but it is a data point, and that data point comes from a type of organization within a particular industry. So all that information is in there. It's anonymized. And when we provide you with an opportunity to benchmark, it means that you're able to compare what your stakeholders, your clients are saying against organizations that are in their industry, against people who are using a similar tool on a similar project to the one that you're using. And that's what I mean. The benchmark for us is you can compare against whatever we have in our database. If we have it in our database and you're on the Roadmap Pro platform, it comes as part of of the package of services that is on Roadmap Pro. That's what we mean. And maybe sometimes we don't have all the types of organizations or industries, but we certainly have a fair few. Over the 25 years, we've worked globally and we've worked across different industries. Hopefully that answers the question on benchmarking.
Okay, so I've got another one here as well. So I like the idea of the built-in video-based learning, but I think we would need more help to get started. What can you offer?
Yes, I think it's a good question. Look, we have some organizations, in fact, organizations and consultancies who say, you know what, we know change management. We have invested actually in other methods. And so what we then need is just a way to quickly align with what you're saying, and so we know how best to use your tool. And so the video is great. You don't need anything else. You don't need a workshop. You don't need anything else. You don't need a webinar, whatever. But then there's some who are saying, actually, we want to use this as our source, and so we need a bit more. And so all I will say to that is, absolutely, we on board. It's a technology. It has, you have to learn how to use it, and so we provide onboarding. We provide webinar-based learning. It's learn by doing. So you come in with a project and you leave with a plan, having applied the material, learned how to use it, know which tool to use when, and so on. And we also attach accreditation to that. So as a practitioner, certainly within the consultancy partners, it is important to know that I am licensed to use. I'm certified to use. So yes, there's onboarding, there's training in the form of webinars, and there is certification that will allow you to be confident and credible very quickly with your client.
Okay, thanks for that. And just the last one here, unless anyone else wants to type any more questions. One from Martin. What are the licensing options for Roadmap Pro? So is it per user, per project plan, or firm-wide? Yeah, and quite frankly, Martin, any and all three. Look, our focus is B2B, but certainly, over the last months and given the environment, we've had a number of individuals who said, you know what, we're consulting and we would like to have some access thanks to that, because some of our organizations are needing something that looks more like yours versus the other thing that I know and have learned. So yes, via our open enrollment, one is able to get access, license access to Roadmap Pro as an individual, and it comes with learning and onboarding, over 2 days or whatever it is. And that's via webinar, and we have a schedule of that running because there has been a demand for it.
we also have team-based, so you have an internal team, you have a super user group, you have a project team, and so you're working on a project and you want to have access for a period of time. So you want, the team of 10, 6, 8 can license for 6 months, 12 months, sometimes only 3 months, but it's mostly 6 months, and that's also fine. And then we have enterprise arrangements. You might say, look, this is something that we want to use across the organization, and we might want an annual license which is renewable, and so on. So all three of those, Martin, are in play with us.
Okay, that's great. Thank you very much. So that concludes the end of the Q&A session. Just to chat a little bit more about the Kickstarter package that Audra mentioned earlier before we sign off. So we know that getting started with digital and your change management initiatives needs a starting point, as Audra said. So we tend to find a way to do that is to focus on a specific project initially. So this enables you to keep things manageable and cost effective, and you see the benefits before rolling it out at a wider level. So this is why we do offer the Kickstarter package. It gets you up and running, and that includes a team-based project license for Roadmap Pro, like Audra mentioned, plus onboarding, ongoing support for your consulting team. So if you are interested in this, or maybe just a demo of Roadmap Pro, please email my colleague, Rachel Godwin. I think you can see her email on screen now, and she'll be glad to help. We would love to stay in touch with you. I know Audra would love to connect with you on LinkedIn. You can search for Audra Proctor for lots more thought leadership content on change management. Also, we'd be really grateful if you could take a moment to fill out our quick 5-question exit survey when this webinar has ended. It's just a little pop-up window that should appear, and you submit your questions. And this is all the time we have for our webinar today. Thank you very much for joining us. Please look for our follow-up email that will include the links to the access of the recording and also the slides as well. But for now, on behalf of Audra and the Changefirst team, thank you so much for joining us today. We hope you have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye.